Hi, this is Kailash from MyPMP. I would like to help you with the topic of doing the estimates in project management. Often I have found that people find it very terrible to do the estimate, especially while they are writing their test for PMP certification or the test flag. There are many techniques that's available for doing the estimating activities while you are into a project. I'll go through a question. I'll give a thought how we can approach it, then I'll explain you what should the answer for that. Let's say you are a project manager and you are responsible for estimating the timeline of an assignment. And the optimistic estimate says that it will take 45 days, and the pessimistic estimate says it will take 50 weeks, and the most likely estimate is it will take 2 months. Using PERT, this is specifically asking the question that you have to use PERT. What could be your estimate? And there is an assumption. You can consider 1 week equal to 7 working days and 1 month equal to 30 days. So just to give you some introduction, some of you, if you're not very familiar with estimating, there are 4 key techniques they use for estimating in project management as per PMP or K-Guide. One of them is analogous estimating. That is done in a very preliminary stage of the project, especially when you are kickstarting a project and you have got very less information about it. That's the method that usually we resort to. We look at some of the similar kind of projects that we have done earlier in the organization, or maybe some other sources of information that can be found from any of the knowledge bases. And based on that, we'll be approximating what could be the estimate for a current assignment. That is analogous estimating. And there is something also known as parametric estimating. For example, if you are going to do the estimate for a data warehousing project, then you can figure out how many tables you are building, how many mappings you are building, how many programs you will be writing, and how much time it takes for each kind of program, and what's the level of complexity of those programs. So based on that, you can parameterize and you can come up with an estimate that is much more accurate than the analogous estimating technique. And the third one is the 3-point estimate, and this is exactly what is being asked in the question. In the 3-point estimate, what happens is you will be given 3 scenarios. One of them is the worst case scenario. Means, let's say if you are going from your home to your office and it's a 10 kilometers distance and you are going by a motorcycle. If the depending on various kinds of traffic situations, it takes somewhere around 20 minutes to 1 hour, and so 20 minutes is the best case when there is no traffic. 1 hour is the worst case when the traffic is very heavy, and most likely it might be taking 35 minutes. So that could be 3 situations. So quite often you usually take 35 minutes, but if you are lucky enough, then you might take 20 minutes, and if it's a very bad day, then it might take up to 60 minutes. So you have been given these 3 things, and based on these 3 things, you should be able to come up with the most accurate estimate as far as possible by using the statistical means. And PERT is one of those 3-point techniques. It uses a distribution known as PERT beta distribution. It is a statistical concept. There's also a distribution known as triangular distribution that is being used for doing the 3-point estimates. That we'll discuss later. What is the triangular distribution? So that's precisely speaking, we have been asked to do an estimate, and it's a 3-point estimate question. Well, just for your information, there is one more estimating technique that is known as bottom-up estimating, wherein if you know every activity in detail and we know how much time it will take to perform each of these activities in minor detail, then we might go for bottom-up estimating. But that's not something within the scope of the discussion, so I'll just stick to the 3-point estimate, and especially the PERT estimate of the 3-point. As I've said earlier, the PERT estimate will be using a specific technique that is in weighted average, and it uses a special kind of statistical distribution known as beta distribution. And beta distribution, what it is, it's a near normal curve, probability curve of distribution, where if you're a little bit familiar with statistical things, if you take an x-axis and y-axis, and x-axis, if you take let's say how many days it will take to finish the task, and on the y-axis you will write what's the probability that it will take those many days, and you plot a curve, it will become a bell-shaped curve. That's known as a normal curve. So the spot distribution is near normal. I won't say it is 100% normalized, but it is near normal. More normalized distribution, probability distribution, we'll discuss later, but for the sake of your familiarity, I thought I'll share it with you. So in our question, we've seen that there are 3-point estimates that have been given, and one is given in days, and the other one is in months, and the second one is in weeks. So let's convert everything into days for the sake of simplicity. Okay, so that's the first thing that we'll do. And now the optimistic estimate was 45 days, it will remain as is, and the pessimistic estimate was 50 weeks, and we'll make it 350 days. And the most likely estimate was 2 months, and assuming that each month is 30 days as it is given in the question, so it will come to 60 days. So we got 3 points now: 45 days, 350 days pessimistic, and most likely estimate 60 days. Now let's use the POT method. Okay, the formula for doing the estimate using the POT method is it's a weighted average which comprises of pessimistic plus 4 times most likely and 1 time again optimistic, sum it up and divide by 6. So in our question it is 45 plus 4 into 60 plus 350 divided by 6. That comes to 105 days. So but you got something. It's all sacrosanct. Is it 100% accurate, or is there anything that you could be able to do to come up with a range? Yeah, I would like to tell you that in statistics, nothing is 100% accurate. It will have a range. It will vary within a certain range, and that varying can be identified with the variance or what is standard deviation. Those of you who are not very familiar with standard deviation, don't panic, we'll cover it later. But standard deviation will tell you if at all you got a value, how big is the standard deviation. So your range will be bigger according to that. So by using PERT, we can also calculate the standard deviation. And the formula for standard deviation is you take the pessimistic value, subtract optimistic value, and divide by 6. How it is derived, you don't need to focus with the timing, I'll tell you that later. But just remember this formula, that if you're using a PERT technique for coming up with a 3-point estimate using a beta distribution, then the standard deviation can be calculated by this formula, pessimistic minus optimistic by 6. Now, given is 350 minus 45 by 6, that comes to 50.83. So the estimate is 105.8 days with a standard deviation of 50.83 days. So that should be the answer. But is it all? We did the answer pretty quickly, but the questions that might be asked by some of you is that what is the standard deviation, by the way, and what is used, what is significance, and how can you interpret this? If suppose the standard deviation is 5 rather than 50, then how does it differ? So as an estimator or as a project manager, how does it make an impact to you? How can you explain this thing to your business users? And how will you be using it in your own project activities while you're executing or monitoring your project? We'll discuss that much more in detail. It's part of strategic subject, but if you understand this, then things will much more clear. I'll talk to you in detail. And we also say that PERT distribution is a 3-point estimate technique. We'll also discuss about different types of 3-point estimate techniques. And it's a beta distribution. There is also triangular distribution, and how it is different from the PERT distribution.